Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and this one honestly doesn't surprise me. It is something the Democrats have been on since last year, and they're just continuing the same old tired lie. Big stakes. Harris vows to kill top Trump policy if she becomes POTUS. Get rid of the whole thing. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris vowed this week to kill one of President Donald Trump's top policies if she wins the 2020 election and becomes president. During a campaign event Monday night, Harris told the crowd that she wants to get rid of the whole thing and that repealing the GOP tax cuts would be a top priority if she becomes the next president. On day one, we're going to repeal that tax bill that benefited the top 1% in corporations, Harris said. Senator Harris, I am not in the top 1%. I am not a corporation. I got a tax cut. Your lie doesn't hold water. When you make more actual dollars, a tax cut saves you more actual dollars than someone who makes less. My company, yes, got a tax cut. They've used a lot of it for advancements, improvements, repairs, so on, as well as giving all of the employees a nice little bonus, including those who had been there very little time at all. So you're literally saying, I'm going to raise everyone's taxes, although coming from someone who has already admitted that she needs to raise taxes on the middle class, it's not a surprise. Harris said she would instead fight for the Life Act, which is a liberal bill currently in Congress that would re-implement the corporate taxes Trump repealed in return for an increase on the income tax credit for middle earners. As noted by Town Hall, the GOP tax cuts resulted in roughly 80% of Americans receiving a tax cut in 2018. For those who are wondering about the other 20%, keep in mind, 20% or more don't pay taxes. Throughout this debate, we've shared data-driven analyses from three separate nonpartisan organizations: the Joint Committee on Taxation, JCT, which is an official congressional scorekeeper; the Tax Foundation, which leans to the right; and the Tax Policy Center, or TPC, which leans to the left. In spite of the deceptive rhetoric flying around social media and the airwaves, all three outfits agreed that the GOP proposal would, on average, reduce the tax burdens of every income group in America. We've showcased the TPC findings because that group is typically home to Democrats' preferred experts. Well, TPC is out with their fresh analysis of the finalized tax bill, and guess what? As we've been saying for weeks, it will slash taxes for the vast majority of American taxpayers. You can see here Joseph Lawler, Tax Policy Center. 80% of taxpayers are going to get a tax cut next year under the GOP. 5% will see a tax hike of more than $10. So you can see, and granted this was December of 2017, so this was referring to last year when my taxes went down. And before we go any further, as I want to address this, Senator Harris, tax refunds are not in any way a good judge of tax relief. I've done this before, but I'll do it again. Let's say you have someone making $50,000 a year, and initially their tax burden is 30%. That's $15,000, meaning they take home $35,000 a year. And that is what is withheld. Their actual tax burden is 10% or 20% or $10,000, meaning they would get a $5,000 tax refund. Now, let's go with the same ratio. Let's say that the tax cut takes us down for a withholdings of 25% and an actual tax burden of 15%. So, 25%, well, 1/5 of $50,000, or 5% is $2,500. So that's $12,500 withheld. 15% would be 15,000. No, I'm going to have to bring out my calculator here, folks. Bear with me. So we're actually going to do this, start over and do this again. So we take out our calculator. We say we have a $50,000 income. Now, you're withheld at 30%. So we do times 0.7 to see you take home $35,000. You had $15,000 withheld. Well, if your actual tax income is 20%, you only owe $10,000, so you get a $5,000 refund. Well, now we take you down to a 25% withholding, well, which is $12,500. But your actual tax burden is only 15%, which is $7,500. Now, in this case, you do get a $5,500 refund. But you could see, and granted these are just random numbers, the tax in the refund tax or tax refund didn't change by much at all. I've done thought exercises on this where the tax refund actually goes down. If we go with a nice round number, $100,000, and your tax withholding burden, which is what you pay over the year through your income tax withholdings, 30%, $30,000. Your actual burden is 25%, so $25,000 is what you should have paid. You get $5,000 back. But if we take this down to a 25% withholding and a 21% actual tax rate, so you can see there's a difference there. You would only get $4,000 back because $25,000 would be withheld. You owed $21,000. Your taxes went down. What you owe the government went down, but your tax refund went down because you paid less over the year and you owed less at the end. Smaller amounts to work with. It's not, you don't have to be a genius. I'm not a math major. I hate math. I can still do this. But let's get back to this. The average tax cut will be $1,600 according to TPC's data. Republicans cited different statistics. A tax cut of more than $2,000 for median home family of 4. Let those numbers marinate for a moment. We've been caught in a blizzard of misinformation claiming that this bill hurts the middle class. But even the Republican Hostile Tax Policy Center couldn't escape the empirical conclusion that 80% of all Americans will see their taxes reduced under the bill. And the losers are limited to just 5%, largely upper-income filers from high-tax blue states. And no, the 1% are rich do not disproportionately benefit from the cuts. TPC report. Bottom 80% currently pays 33% of all federal income taxes, but gets 35% of the cuts. Top 1% pays 27% of all federal taxes, but gets 21% of the cuts. So the share of all federal taxes paid by the wealthy will rise. Harris wants to repeal a policy that resulted in roughly 80% of Americans keeping more of their hard-earned money. Her comments also come after the massive April jobs report and a CNN poll finding that the majority of Americans agree with how Trump has handled the economy. According to data from the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, the last time unemployment rate was this low, under 4%, was December 1965 to January 1970. That is 54 years ago to 49 years ago. On Friday, the Labor Department announced that the economy added 263,000 jobs and hourly wages grew by 0.2% in April. The Dow Jones Industrial Average Index of top stocks has been hovering near its record high in recent days. Gross domestic product rose by 3.2% in the first quarter. The economy, with help from the GOP tax cuts, is doing so well that even Hillary Clinton is giving Trump credit. It's very simple. When you say, I'm going to cut taxes by X percent, let's say 5%, everybody gets a 5% tax cut. Well, someone who is paying 35% going down to 30 will save more money than a low-income earner who was paying 18% goes down to 13. Both got the exact same percentage cut. But see, Democrats bank on you not realizing that simple math proves them wrong. They have to go based on emotion, based on rhetoric, and based on nothing, and hope that you don't understand. The tax cuts worked. The economy is booming. Ironically, this is the same thing that happened roughly 38 years ago. When Ronald Reagan took office in 1981, we had the slow beginning of Reaganomics. By 1988, the economy was booming. I can remember my father worked for the railroad much of the early 1980s, and then he and my mother started a photo lab. At the time, very good business to be in. We didn't have hardly any problems until, unfortunately, Herbert Walker Bush and his Read My Lips was a lie. Ultimately, then Bill Clinton, and on and on. Reaganomics, in fact, was so good that when Walter Mondale tried to steal Ronald Reagan's "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago" campaign slogan from 1980, Americans actually had to say, "Yeah, I am. So I'm going to keep Reagan in office." Imagine if someone actually used that next year. "Are you better off than you were 20 years ago or 4 years ago?" And Americans resoundingly replied with, "Yes, we are." And the open problem for Democrats is they know all of this. So they have to keep the hype and rhetoric for the MSM talking points. But make no mistake, they're doing all they can to remove Donald Trump from office before 2020 and to prevent him from even running. Because, of course, when you can't win on the facts, which this is going to prove for Kamala, she can't win on the facts because she doesn't use them, you just change the rules. But that's a conversation for another time. I've talked long enough. Let me know what you think. Of course, keep the comments civil. We do not learn from argument, we learn from debate. As always, please make sure to like, share, and comment on this video, as well as to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you're the first to know of any new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.